Ruthlessness is him finding people guilty and shooting them in firing squad. But that was a British form of humiliation. You subjugate by killing the ones who are guilty to scare the rest.
I am very tough, yes.
Just don't face him when you're an enemy.
The helicopter would just come and sit on the boat and sink it. They came with tanks, APCs, and then they would shoot at them.
And then there was an amazing accusation by my uncle, who was the foreign minister, that my father had eaten his sister's son.
President Idi Amin Dada's exit from power was as dramatic as his entry, a chaotic ouster. 46 years after his big fall and 22 after his death, NTV revisits his legacy, speaking to one of his many children and an insider then, seeking the truths, half-truth, and what some may consider as fiction. My name is Duncan Haemba.
I've lived here ever since, and I did the one thing that no one ever does. I faced my demons.
I will well and truly exercise the functions of the head of government of the Republic of Uganda.
Field Marshal President Idi Amin Dada, the third president of the Republic of Uganda, was many things to many people. As to his character and conduct, it depends on who you ask. His 8¼ rule in Uganda was nothing but eventful.
Respect, sir, I asked this question. Do you think you're a tough man?
Yes, I am. I am very tough, yes. And I will never give up. If I wanted to do something, I would never change my mind.
Is that a good or a bad thing in a political leader, toughness?
Toughness is good because the people respect you, and tough man is a quality which you can find for the high command, because when he gives order, they know that that order is given by the strong man and they must be obeyed. It is very important.
Born on 30th May 1928 as per the family and death certificate record, Idi Amin Alemi Dada is described as ruthless and vicious when it came to dealing with anybody who crossed his path. He came to power on January 25, 1971 after overthrowing then President Milton Obote, with whom they had fallen out. Before the coup d'etat, Obote was planning to clip Amin's wings, but with the military precision, the Army Major General overthrew President Obote, firing his artillery first before Obote could pull a trigger on him. It is said the zeal and zest with which Idi Amin took Uganda through was on another level, making him rule fiercely as he pushed to bring change in his country.
I said that the duty of the woman is the housewoman. He knows how to keep house very well. If he can do that, let me make first examinations, appoint women to be the managers of hotel, which is done. Because this is a part of the women's job. If they can keep house very well, it is exactly like their duty as a housewife. If he is well educated, he has got that brain, he is determined, he can look after the hotel very well. I want to see a woman, international hotel, very big one. Must be woman Ugandans, and I know they can do it. And you, as a minister, you must back them completely. If you find any man trying to not to obey the order and everything, you can punish that person. You can remove that person. You can put loyal people to her to see that We keep upstanding. We are thinking we are the first now country in Africa today who have got many women managers than other countries. We have got how many? Manager woman.
His 8 years in charge before his ouster in the 9th one, some described as a reign of terror and an era that was an era, owing to his no-nonsense style of leadership. It is alleged that in 3 years he had killed over 150,000 people.
Group yako iko tayari? Haya, leta section. Napiga target. Standing.
Arrows, rabbit, fire!
His home was situated a few meters from the capital detention and torture chambers that had an underground tunnel to the house, and that he personally tortured his victims and killed them using a sledgehammer. They would be clubbed to death, burnt, and their bodies dumped into River Nile for crocodiles to feast on, or some who were forced to wear white aprons were shot publicly, and others were strangled and their chopped off private parts stuffed down their throats to send a chilling warning. So they said. His terror apparatus is said to have been lethal and enormous, extensive and expansive. To maintain this, it is claimed that each year he recruited tens of hundreds of people from his Kakwa tribe to join the security unit he deceptively named Police Public Safety Unit and State Bureau Research. This was his intelligence unit, an army of about 18,000 who acted as death squads to terrify the country. On 4th August 1972, he gave a 90-day notice to the Indian community, who are mainly business people, to leave Uganda and leave all their belongings behind. He accused them of disloyalty, refusal to integrate, and commercial malpractice. The community, which was estimated to be about 80,000, heeded the directive and started leaving in a huff. When the deadline reached, it was helter-skelter, some leaving behind their shoes, boarding the plane bare feet.
I want to see that Ugandans work very hard. You must not make the women of Uganda very weak. They must get up quickly in the morning at about 5 o'clock. They are ready in Nakasero, preparing, ready to sell vegetable and everything in the shop.
People, George Kabera, go and get him.
In Kampala city, we meet 59-year-old Jafar Remo, the third-born son of Idi Amin, who has seen it all. Growing up under his giant father Amin, being whisked to exile with the rest of the family at the age of 13, before being sent back to Uganda after a fallout with his exiled dad, Dada.
I would like to speak as a heavyweight champion here in Uganda. I am sure I will be in position even to defeat or defend myself. But I wanted to tell you this.
Like some of the other children of Amin, Jafar vehemently defends his father even in death, as he calls for national reconciliation.
If I ended up in exile at the age of 13, that was the right moment for me to be with a father who had just lost power. We had 21 mothers. Then an amazing thing, there were probably 11 mothers from my motherland in Busoga. We are 60, but we recognized 40. We have lost now approaching 8. So we're in the range of 53, 54 now. Some have not been, some have not been confirmed, from 21 official mothers. But the married betrothal wives are 7.
With the world having its own version of Idi Amin, we ask him about his father's character, the family perspective.
My father was incredibly jolly, but my father was also what we call a melancholic. A melancholic person seems to be sad and serious at the same time, yet they're loving and giving at the same time. Melancholy seems to be a very African character, and some people have it as their status. Some would think of that almost like a sociopathic, but for me, I think it is actually somebody who just is the most sincere person you can ever have. I heard it from him once saying, some people come and fight me and expect me just to put my hands behind my back. No, I fought them back. Yeah? But God will be my judge. For me, that is the character of sincerity and a character of helpfulness that runs a streak throughout his life. Just don't face him when you're an enemy.
Having been born in Shimoni Barracks, where his father worked as a police officer, Idi Amin was enrolled in an Islamic school in Bombo but quit at grade 4, taking odd jobs before he was recruited in King's African Rifles of the Colonial Army as a cook. His level of education was the subject of debate over and over.
In your days, Muslim schools could only go up to primary 4. And primary level, the elementary level, only went up to primary 6. They insisted as a policy that you end up in missionary schools. Our parents reneged, especially amongst the Nubians and the Muslims.
So how was it like growing up with Amin as a dad and the harsh president he was said to be?
The strangest thing about large families, you don't realize the person is your father until you're coming to expensive places and the wandering eye, and the luxury. I got so used to Barrack's life. He tended to leave his children, who he had sown his royal oats outside, with the lieutenants. We had a very joyful one, but a very cruel one called John Katabarwa, who would look after us in Jinja. Then they would send us to Fadul in Mbarara. In fact, the 1972 war found us in Mbarara. And in those days, I used to actually think my grandmother was my mother.
After expelling the Indian minorities and determined to improve the country's economy to ensure it remains afloat, Amin declared total war against smuggling. He deployed his hawk-eyed expansive security machinery in the air, land and sea.
He took very, very drastic actions against the smugglers. The helicopter would just come and sit on the boat and sink it. They came with tanks, APCs, and then they would shoot at them. And that's how my cousin, who was one of the people who was engaged in this smuggling, so one day he was caught out. So he tried to run, but still they managed to shoot him.
But I have got a very good brain.
What Idi Amin was to the outside world is what he was to his family. He spared no one who did not toe the line. On 26th March 1974, he shocked the country when he publicly announced live on Radio Uganda that he had divorced his 3 wives at one go. Other quarters allege that the unprecedented divorce was occasioned by the women dancing with their security detail during one of those many parties Amin hosted with the live bands. However, family says it was as a result of going against his decrees. The president went on the national radio and interrupted programming to announce to the public his decision to divorce his wives, Mariam, Nora and Kay. The children were in school only to come home and find their mothers had been chased away.
That happened because of a serious irony, he had stipulated no one of my family will partake of the departed Asian's property. So the divorce was not a need and an urge for more women. It was him doing a typical forthright show of example. Cruel as it was, he said, for the act of corruption and partaking of the departed Asian's property illegally against my direct decree, I henceforth divorce the three of you. The world was in laughter.
The death Jafar is alluding to is the 1975 senseless and horrendous murder of one of the three wives who were divorced, Kay Adoroa, the biological mother of Hussein Lumumba Amin. The former First Lady was found dead in the trunk of a car, cut into pieces. The body parts were taken to Mulago Hospital, with her children finding about it in the news.
That's how she was found, and that was the doctor's doing. Okay? Why he decided that is besides the point, but it's the absolute cruelty, and it is the red line that gives strife and angst and anger and hatred for anybody discussing the issue. But people need to understand that it was a botched abortion, and the doctor decided to do what he did.
Health Minister at the time, the late Henry Chamber, once said he was ordered by Amin to have the victims' bodies stitched together to enable the children view. They were then picked from school to go identify their late mother's body alongside Amin.
You see, humility is you give them a decent burial. We in Islam, in our sheet, that's a decent burial. Decency was given to the burial, and that was all. But lamentations happen, and that's actually what my uncle was trying to say, that he sounded harsh while talking in front of his children towards the deceased. But you see, lamentations happen, and people say cruel things, painful things. I once sat with my dad, I was massaging him, and I'm like, I miss Lumumba's mother. I said, but that's your mother also. Yeah, that's Lumumba's mother. You see, for me, people take ownership, and they're very, very possessive about the lines, the red lines we call it. Do you miss him? Yes, I miss him. What happened? It's like, I don't know if they're in connivance with the Tanzanians, but what the man did, I don't understand. But they blame everything on me.
These are some of the rare images that went public, which explicitly exposed excesses of Amin. They were captured by legendary photojournalist Mohammed Amin as Kampala authorities brutalized individuals caught on the wrong side of Amin. The savagery, ferocity was something else. Idi Amin was described as the butcher of Uganda.
Now, if in 1972, a whole nation who loved Obote and has the leadership of Nyerere gives full support for an invasion, it was not a guerrilla war, it was a conventional invasion of the country. 1,000 were annihilated, and it was a war. Only for a very amazing person who was a good friend of the family called Muhammad Amin to swivel through and take those famous pictures when the bodies were being loaded of people who dutifully crossed the border to fight. When somebody takes extenuating pictures of the dead, no one wants to show that. And that was actually against even the ethics of journalism. But that became the face of Idi Amin's government, having forgotten that these people attacked and were annihilated. If a mouthpiece in Tanzania claims 500,000 have died, they have to justify it by saying he dumped them in the river to be eaten by crocodiles. When you do a mass murder, the place you bury always sinks. In the 80s, we put ours on display. But I always claim the 500,000 of Luero is the one being transferred to there because everyone wants to justify or understand the numbers. Me, that accusation of mass murder on that scale of what I consider genocide happened in the 80s, not in the 70s. 70s was the case of extrajudicial killings and those cruel moments of firing squad. But after finding out that these are the very same people who are under two groups, Kikosu Maalum and Fronasa, today they hang medals on people who were shot on firing squad, claiming they were operatives for the historical Fronasa that created NRA. You cannot have your cake and eat it by accusing, then coming and putting heroic medals on the very same person for the crimes they committed. Until there's a short circuit in that nonsense of understanding, we will always be accused, knowing that nobody on our side can speak. The misconception is that we are not educated. But exile gave us the gift of becoming the middle class. We are the elites. I come from the elite families of Uganda. I'm a first family, yes? 2, they were talking about the issue of cannibalism. And then there was an amazing accusation by my uncle, who was the foreign minister, that my father had eaten his sister's son. The son doesn't like to talk, but he's alive. And he is in Paris, France. But he likes to keep his privacy. But I always tell him, you're compounding the problem. You're going to go to your old age and pass away without saying, hey, I'm Moses. The one who accused my father of cannibalism and actually got his sister to sign off an affidavit, which all wire networks uses as evidence of truth, is the spitting image of his uncle.
So, was Idi Amin falsely accused of all these doings? Or is Jafar just being a fierce defender of his late father?
No. I'm trying to explain how 6 key accusations can become the stamp of the man. Nkutu had been taken out of jail and had been taken to Nairobi for medication. When he comes back, he finds some issues about Mzee Gala, who was the CEO of Ginger Barracks, that he was cohabiting with the beloved Mama Wavana. If you've spent time in jail because of a bote, then the man who releases you sends you for medical treatment. How the hell do I come and kill you after releasing you from jail? It just doesn't make sense. They say, no, he was a madman. But the irony is, this man bravely comes, he's at his supermarket, he finds out what has been happening. He heads to the lion's den, Ginger Barracks. Can you imagine entering Ginger Barracks and you're like, Colonel Hussein, stay away from my wife. Stay away from the mother of my children. You don't do that to a soldier. You do not enter the lion's den and harangue a very powerful man like that. These are names you might not know about, but people like Mzee Gala were the quiet, very tough types. He doesn't expect anybody to come in and do the act of humiliating him in front of his soldiers. You don't do that. It's not the etiquette that any soldier would accept. He sends Waris. There was a guy called Waris Kwendelete. The last thing Ginger sees is the old man being dumped in a Land Rover and heading back to the barracks. it becomes Amin's issue. Absolute power means, basirikare, jeshi, makeya. Who's the head? Amin. No one stops to think, hey, what if it was a love triangle that went wrong? 2, there's another killing that happened with Smart Gwedeko. Smart Gwedeko one day found Farouk Minawa, who was head of security, and beats him up for cohabiting with a schoolgirl. I used to think it was his wife. No. There was a schoolgirl who was basically his niece. So a brigadier general beats up a lieutenant colonel. But the lieutenant colonel, by being of the Nubian extraction, ironically, of Dar es Salaam, people forget that Bagamoyo had a very strong Nubian community, and Mombasa. But the man ended up a very powerful person in Uganda, Farouk Minawa. Being beaten in front of fellow officers for him was a disgrace, even if the person beating him up was a what? Was the head of the Air Force. A third one that really cemented the so-called evil against my father is claiming he killed his own wife. Now, if I am a lady and I'm 7.5 months pregnant, but I have second thoughts about my relationship with my lover because I want to go back to my husband's home, and you're getting pressure from our grandparents, you're shaming us, go back to your husband, he is the head of state, you were first lady. Do you decide to terminate? You see the sensitivity of 7.5 months. That is a dangerous moment. But the decision of this man after failing on the abortion table, and what happens to the body of our mother, it's painful, and nobody likes to listen to that, including the real children who were born. For them, that is a red line. It's people crossing the red line.
Then there is this prominent picture where 4 British businessmen were captured in July 1975 carrying Idi Amin aloft during a party, an act that surprised many.
They was like, you know what? You people used to make us carry you for miles. In front of these soldiers, I really want to just show you what you people used to do to us. You know, rugby players, they're like, no, let's go and have a stiff one. When they say, let's go and have a stiff one, it's like, they entered in there, up. You see that second floor up there? It used to be a bar, eh? They went and really hammered their thing, eh? And then they go, right, we're ready. And most of them were rugby players, good friends of his. So out of the blue, that was never there. They came from the kitchen end. Everyone was this side. This part is not there. Huh? And they were passing like this with him. The most joyful person in that picture is actually Moses Ali. And he's like, hey, Marshal. Hey. It was a moment that touched on a man called Goat. Goat was a cruel, absolutely cruel man who was the commissioner of Mbarara. The first recorded so-called heinous murder was of that very man. Now they come with their music, and then he comes from there. Hey! 1975, the moment of his preeminence.
Other African delegates are there.
Oh, the Mobutus, the Gaddafis, they say, you can conquer us, man. No, but that image touches every African. It is like that moment Oman Biyik headers and scores against Argentina. The whole of Africa did a somersault. You see? You get? What I mean is the impossible moments. Obama winning. You know? So Muzee's moment at that time, but was followed by the humiliation of 76. You don't do this to a white man, not for him to counter.
Enter 1979 January and Amin's reign begins coming to a screeching halt. He ordered Tanzania invasion, which was countered in January with support of several Ugandan exiles who had united under the banner Ugandan National Liberation Army, leading to a full-blown war between the two neighbor countries, Uganda and Tanzania. His troops were subdued, and when the going got tough, it was time to save face.
I have withdrawn the troops from Tanzania border and withdrawing them to the Uganda national border because I believe in a peace, unity, reconciliation and love between my neighbors, including Tanzania, and a good understanding.
I did go out there and meet up with him again because I just wanted to see the state that he was in and so on. And it was actually really rather tragic. He had taken to the bottle, he was drinking neat creme de cacao. There was a lot of bluff and so on, We'll still defeat them and I've got battalions behind me and everybody in the country is loyal to me. There was no truth to it at all. He knew his days were numbered.
But he's going to go. He has no alternative now. He has no options at all. He must go.
And what's actually happening in Uganda now?
There are a lot of fighting. There's a lot of fighting going on in various parts of the country. A lot of sabotage activities. Troops are deserting the army. And Amin is in hiding.
He was forced to flee to exile on 11th April 1979 when Kampala was captured, marking his epic fall from power. The final assault against him was led by Major General David Oite Ojok with the backing of Tanzania forces.
He was ousted. We were already in Libya, but everything starts a month earlier. We are picked from schools and we are spread all over the country. But ours, we could not come by road because they'd already taken over Mbarara and Masaka. They never bothered to come down towards Kigezi where we were at school. We went through vehicles into Rwanda and Congo, came back Kasese. Then a plane from Wilson Airport, ironically, flew to Kasese and collected us and brought us to Entebbe. So we were in a surreal moment where they bring us to Kampala. Instead of bringing us to my favorite Nakasero, they take us to Norman Godino, some Indian school that is now called Buganda Road. We sit there, then the absolute horror of listening to the boom sounds of artillery. Nakwambia, there's nothing like confusing rockets, artilleries with thunder. You think, hey, mbona hainyenyeshi? Why isn't it raining? These are bombs raining in. One day a soldier comes and he has this distant look. You people, war is hell, eh? This man sits there, busy in a cigar too, finishing a whole... It's like, hey, come on, listen, this guy has crazy things. It's, look, we sit there, and instead of one bomb landing, you get 7 simultaneous explosions. And every time you move, it is like they have got roving eyes following you. They didn't realize they had insiders. One of the army commanders, field commanders, he was called Lieutenant Colonel Yorokamo. He's a cousin of the present president. He was giving away GPS coordinates, yeah? The moment Oito Joke decided to ironically target Bulange, which was the Republic House, when the first artillery shell hit Kampala, that's when the decision to vacate happened. Hell was raining into Entebbe area. because Mpiji and Entebbe are very near. And he was doing an amazing thing between 77 and that time. He had an agreement with Andrew Young. He was a senator, and Andrew Young was buying our coffee. People think 1.5 billion today is something. We got to a point in 77 where we were selling $4 billion worth of coffee, but he was being paid in hard cash. So all our so-called airlines were turned into cargo planes. So one came in from Miami. They called it the Andrew Young shuttle, where he was buying coffee from Uganda. When it came in, it had no carpeting, so it was just pure aluminium. They just put seats, gave every child a blanket, and we flew out. I only remember some very distinct motion of how we got out, because the bombings were still going on intermittently. You can keep hearing, we keep thinking it's thunderclap and whatever, but it was a war going on. So they put 4 cars around the plane. Instead of switching on the runway, they start at full speed. And the plane picks up using the lights of the planes just near the wings and in front. By the time it gets to full speed, it's taking off, those people started realizing, oh my God, they're utilizing the airport. They thought they were scrambling MiGs. So they bombed the runway. That really happened after we had taken off, and it was a new life. We started eating something called camo. Started getting fat very quickly. I was 13, the most inquisitive moment of a child. But that moment in my head is what makes me who I am, because we regained our father.
So you were in Libya for how long?
9 months. We even got that moment where my father was demanding to go to Mecca. Then some terrorists attacked. That's the moment we started to hear internal wrangles among Muslims. We would never. I kept saying, how can a Muslim be hitting our holy place? So no, these people have their fissures and sections. And so after those 9 months, my dad really got very hectic about it. One day he did a very strange thing. He got out and he was heading towards Tunisia instead of towards Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And we walked for about 15 meters. He was crying, all laid up with his guns and everything. It's like, don't stop me, I'm walking to Mecca. And the Arab, some were saying it and I came to understand it later. Mecca is this way. And we only started laughing when we ended up in the sitting room. And I go, Baba, you would have ended up in Morocco with your friend. Which was very near, actually.
So that was pushing him that he has to go to Mecca?
In 1972. Let me explain a religious dictum. You'll find it amongst Jews, you'll find it amongst us. There's something called safe haven. If it's like, America is my enemy, Britain is my enemy, I'm using his movements, We're bloody British. The only places you have an agreement. I had an agreement in 1972 with Faisal. He said, you kick these Israelites out, we sign a be'edha. Be'edha is a blank check. They gave my father be'edha, a blank check where, for whatever he will ever need, he will be provided for. No one has ever received that. No one has ever been loved by the Muslim world like Idi Amin. Nobody. They even said this, and this is the confusion where they think we are secret billionaires. For every barrel, $1 would be given to Uganda. Not Idi Amin, not his family, but to help Uganda. Because they're the #1 supporters of our cause and the Arab cause and the Muslim cause. Uganda would receive. We were not bankrupt the way these useless people would say. He was going with his begging bowl. No, the man had been given a bed. a blank check. So every dollar during the height of the OPEC was coming into Ugandan coffers.
After his 9-month stay in Libya and tension between him and President Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, a once powerful and mighty ruler, a deflated Idi Amin moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia to begin a new life, far away from his motherland Africa. Life away from public eye scrutiny. It was new life until his demise. Legendary photojournalist Mohammed Amin traced him and captured Amin's first media interview while in exile.
My people are not outside Uganda only, but also they are inside Uganda. They are farmers and they are working. They are loyal to Uganda and they are working for the return of Uganda.
Orthodox, very strict nation. That's what Saudi Arabia is. I recognize myself as Saudi Arabian because Dad actually requested for citizenship for us, the Saudi Arabians. I've not taken it up, but one day I'll ask either my brother Muhammad or the king. I'm like, hey, when are we getting our citizenship? It's the only thing I might ever ask for. The place is totally luxurious, very restrictive. That restrictiveness is the one that sent my mother going to Germany. People don't realize she was married when she was 16. The papers claimed 19. So she left Saudi Arabia at the age of 25. So you can imagine you're in a very restrictive society and you're so young. Eh? Now, what about us who were children? Luckily, they sent me to England when I was around 18. But I hated the weather, but I loved the process. You know, you go to these nations not to become somebody who works in McDonald's and wimpy. You go there to earn an education and come back. And in fact, that's where we had issues with my dad. It's like, oh, wait, Chombe, you're turning into something crazy. Your people tell me from Monday to Holy Sunday, you're in discos. So I'm like smiling, but I'm young, Dad. Yeah, but they abuse us about education. Get your education. You see that focus where he's trying to explain to somebody he loves. It's like, if you're not careful, I'll send you to the refugee camps. The best threat that he would ever give to us would be send you to refugee camps in Congo. Last days of my father was in a coma, but I was here in Uganda. My brothers were there. One especially, who I'm very grateful to, is called Aliga. Isa Aliga, he was with his father. Whatever I was doing from 1980 to 1990 was what Aliga was doing from 1990 to the death of his father. You basically become like an ADC. I used to find it funny that Dad would turn us into PSs, permanent secretaries. So he had that routine. Take me to the place of phones. The man was constantly a communication expert. Dad has always been and understood the whole purpose of what they used to call macho mingi. For him, he had a network. Let me explain. We have the monarchists, these are the Baganda. We have Obote's socialists. We have my father's military, but he was actually just a cultural chief, the equivalent of what you find in Ghana or whatever. I'm talking in terms of rulership. Then you have now a real Marxist with a very strong secret service unit around the country. But my father still had his network and he would actually just be calling. He spent a lot of his money and a lot of his time just talking to people and helping people out there. He once sent one of my brothers up a hill. He said, you'll go up here, you get to this mango, a place called Nyenga. When you enter, you give that old man money. Who are you? Oh, Amin has sent me. The man was so happy. Then my brother comes and asks, who was that? He said, we used to go and Kwana. Kwana is, you know, chat up the man's daughters. I was like, oh my God, Dad still has his network. They used to call it macho mink.
How was he surviving in terms of resources?
You see, there's something about power. It's not about money. Today we have what we call individual merit. It makes people narcissists. People who are absolutely selfish. They were not there for the country. They were not there for the country. For them, it was about taking. With Idi Amin, it wasn't that. He left penniless. But there they did something strange and important. I think it was the Americans who were like, keep a hold on to this man. So he was given a lot of money. For him, he just banked it and it's like, it's for your bright future. All you children have a bright future. But every month he was getting 100,000 reals. That's around 35, 36, 38, $31,000. And that, it was just constantly just helping people. So we were never in need or want, but it was us children basically disturbing him. Why are you going out with these useless American guys? Get a Mercedes. It's like, it's not about luxury anymore. Tuko kwa shida. We're not in our own home. We're like these Palestinians who are not in their own homes.
Were there any regrets in his quiet moments after losing power, wealth, and home?
There are a lot. You see, he really liked both of Fumbi, and that's the reason I went to meet the family. He's like, this man probably was duped to sign off. You know, in the Admiralty, if your signature is the one that is most approved, and you probably end up in connivance or somebody forges your signature and it's found in the Admiralty for the weapons that were brought into Uganda. The instance of accusing both of Fumbi, whether it is true or erroneously, he was like, that was my good friend. That one should have not died. The way he died, people don't explain it. I will shortly, but for him, that is a moment of total regret. And then he felt that Nyerere just believed in Obote, but not realized that the most important tribe in Uganda absolutely hated Obote. That explains why when they threw him out, chaos reigned, because the Baganda were like, we can't be bringing in the very same person we hate the most. A catch-22 situation. And that's why he keeps saying, the only thing I have issues with is claiming I didn't compensate, that I stole these Indians' things. I compensated them. But the issues of killings, I leave to God.
On July 19, 2003, the mighty and fallen Amin went into a coma due to kidney failure. He was taken to King Faisal Specialist Hospital in Jeddah, but doctors declared his condition irreversible. He died almost a month later on 16th August 2003 and was buried in Al Ruwais district, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, in accordance with the Islamic faith.
My tribe is saying we don't know if he's dead. There's some who still believe he's alive. There are some who still believe he's alive based on that fact that we never attended his funeral. And then we as children don't gather. Large families never gather. Let no one ever lie to you. Large families are fractious. Each one to his own. They don't realize the benefit of that tribe, that new tribe coming as a nucleus and gathering. It's people like me who sometimes do it. We go to Bombo. I like Bombo because it's symbolic. Everything of ours is taken over by people who thought they were victors. But they don't realize it will happen to them also. You know, what comes, what they claim we did to the Indians is what they're doing to us. So we keep saying, no, we compensated them. We never stole from them, but you're stealing from us. I'm talking about all the powers that be. For them, like, no, we're taking all their properties because they took from the Indians.
What made you come back to Uganda and leave your father in Saudi?
We had a tiff. We had a tiff. I was spending too much time in discos as usual. Then when I got to Saudi Arabia, the war started, and he's like, I'm not wasting money with you. You go and see your mother. Dad, you're chasing me. So I said, no. When are you going to go back to home? Huh? You'll be okay. I'm like, Dad, are you chasing me away? I was a typical British. So I said, look, bombs are raining in here, Riyadh, the same way it happened in Entebbe. Remember, he was giving us, so the trauma of Entebbe was coming out. Eh? And I was like, go to safety and we'll think about it. So I come, and my mother had given birth to 13 children, including me. And I find her with her husband with beautiful 7 children. It's like, now this father of yours, come to what? A 2-bedroomed house? You with your leg, you will sleep and your legs will go out of the door into the corridor. Let me talk to him. I say, Mom, don't. You'll make the junior mother uncomfortable. I haven't seen you since I was 3. I only saw you once in 79, 78. I'm home. Coming back was a blessing in disguise. And I've lived here ever since. And I did the one thing that no one ever does. I faced my demons. Whether you're in Hollywood, stars, child, or very important people, we tend to like hiding. We hide in plain sight. We hate any form of discussions. I might have caused some rift with my discussions today, but I am the one who sort of like the pioneer of speaking. My father spoke his mind. There are some people picking up on my vibes, and the most beautiful things, 80% of this country are below 30. They've only known Museveni all their lives, and suddenly they're thinking Amin is better than anybody who has ever ruled. It's not nationalist, it is patriotic. When you say nationalistic, it's my father chasing Indians and compensating them. Or it is Baganda saying, get out of Kampala and take your parliament with you. That is a nationalist. A patriot loves the country, provides and serves. And that's what I'm trying to get all these young people to realize. But Amin was actually very magnanimous, but ruthlessness sometimes comes across in a terrible manner. Ruthlessness is him finding people guilty and shooting them in firing squad. But that was a British form of humiliation. You subjugate by killing the ones who are guilty to scare the rest. He was not doing it like the 80s. The 80s were people going into villages and shooting. Luwero, that's the reality of 500,000 people. That 500,000 never happened then. It happened in the 80s. But that's anarchy. But ours, totalitarianism, absolute power. Him actually ruling like a king. The man inherited the traditions that Buganda ironically love today. They want a king that is all powerful, but I'd be like, oh, but that's what we call dictatorship. Eh? Our man right now acts like a king. He's egging every habit that they've ever accused on my father and more. Absolute power is the absolute mistake that every African leader since 1957, including my beloved Kwame Nkrumah, they all started wanting to become chiefs and kings. That is the greatest mistake in Africa. What I miss the most is his loving and caring person. He was a mothering character, and he never forgot everybody. What I mean by that, he always seemed to have tabs on everybody. How is he? How is he getting along? You'd find things coming your way. You might dismiss it as a matter of pride, because I was very successful up to his death. Up to August 16, 2003, I was a very successful person. And he had seen me succeed. So for me, the greatest thing I would ever want is what I am doing, involved in now, what we call national reconciliation. Because I have several mothers, I'm able to tell people that I'm a synthesis of this country and we should be doing the healing. And whatever happened during his time or after can't be blamed on the past, because right now children don't want to know. 80% of them know the present. And the only enemy is corruption, and the only disease is poverty.
Duncan Haemba for NTV in Kampala, Uganda.